and some of that. Let me just say that I'm a fifth-generation Texan. I'm a God-fearing patriot. I'm a lifelong conservative activist. I was born in Dallas and grew up in the Metroplex. Graduated from UT in 1981 and finance degree. I started my company in 1985. That's a real estate company, and I run that with my twin brother Philip, and it's been good to us. I love real estate. It's really a good space for me. My political bio is I've been working campaigns since I was a teenager, always going for the most conservative candidate. I went to my first county convention when I was 18 by 2 weeks, Republican convention. My parents were not political. And I've supported a lot of candidates over the years. Have you ever met a Republican that didn't say he was conservative? No. They all say that. And 90% of them are liars. And they know they're liars. They're going to campaign one way and they're going to govern a different way. And they know that. And it's an intentional, duplicitous nature of politics. I can tell you the swamp in Austin is every bit as deep as the one in Washington. It's a very vindictive place. And it might not be as wide, but it really is as deep, just as deep. I'm going to tell you, and then I'm just going to tell you right now some stories that you probably won't hear from any other legislators. But let me just start out by saying on April the 18th of this year in 21, there was a 28-year-old lady and her 12-month-old and her husband went to church in Dallas. And the church was still scared of the virus, the Wuhan. So they were meeting in the gymnasium, and they set the chairs up, 2 chairs at a time, about 10 feet apart. They sat in the far back right-hand corner at the church so not to bother anybody. And she's holding the baby, and she took her mask off. And the preacher, he walks by, and he says, "You need to put that mask back on." And she said, "I'm not going to do that because, you see, I'm pregnant with number 2 and I'm experiencing morning sickness. I don't feel good." He said, "You need to put it on." She did. So the service goes on and she comes back to her chair after taking communion. She's kneeling and praying with her eyes closed, and she feels this heavy hand on her neck. She turns around and looks up. There's 3 Dallas policemen standing above her.
Oh my gosh.
In the service. 3 of them. And they're sitting there in the middle of the service and telling her she's going to jail because she didn't have a mask on. Her husband, he's a calm fella. He pulls out his cell phone and starts videoing. And talks to the police into taking it outside. And they did. And they wrote her up. And they took a picture of her license plate with the usher in the church. And told her if that car ever came back again, she's going to jail. The place she'd been going to church on and off for 20 years. The video did go viral. Over 1 million Americans saw that in Texas because they couldn't believe that this could happen in Texas. Well, the kicker on the story is that 28-year-old's my daughter. And she did go on Bannon and talk about it. But it's indicative of the liberty that we've lost. It's indicative to the state of Texas and where we're at. And I blame it on that. I blame it on him. He's an enabler. You know, enablers, if you commit a crime and you're an enabler on it, or the people you're with, you get the same penalties as the guys that go inside the bank to rob it. You drive the getaway car, you can get to death penalty in Texas. And that's what Abbott's done. He's empowered the leftists, and the socialists, and the communists. They've been waiting in the wings in our churches, our seminaries, our education system, and our media. They've taken it all over. And now they made a political statement out of a health statement. And he's fallen right into it. Well, my personal bio, besides that I'm a fifth-generation Texan, I married my beautiful, perfect wife, Mary Catherine, 34 years ago. I don't know why she's out in the car for some reason. I think she's still trying to find where we're at. And we have 5 children, 4 boys and a girl, and we homeschooled them throughout their schooling career, make sure they grew up in a good Christian environment, and they did. I'm a new grandfather 4 times over in 18 months.
All right.
New chapter in our lives. It's really tremendous. Thank you. And Deirdre just had that baby I was talking about, which is bringing 5 days ago now. It's a little boy. It's very exciting. It is. But I was in the Senate from 14 to 18. And I like to do my hunting. And I got so many guns. I can't even count them. What do you do with old guns? You just kind of can't get rid of them.
You just look at them, you pet them every now and then.
You never have too many.
I don't know. I made the mistake of buying so many rifles. Everyone's a different caliber. Now I got to buy all the different ammo. No, I never just buy 2 or 3. Anyway, I love my guns. But there was I'd like to say this story because it's fun. But there was a trophy on the wall I didn't have in 13 that I really wanted. And it was a trophy rhino. So I ran against the most liberal Republican in Austin. He ran Dallas County, 25-year incumbent, and I knocked him out without a runoff in 140 days. It was an epic campaign, and it's never been done before, and it's never been done since. So I understand what it's like to be an underdog, but I don't enter races I don't think I'm going to win. And so I was in that Senate from 14 to 18. A few things I got done down there that I want to brag about was I was always ranked one of the most conservative, top 1, 2, or 3 in the Senate. The 2 sessions I was there, one term. I'm also, according to the Secretary of the Senate, the only elected office holder in the history of the state of Texas, in Austin, that is, that they knew of, that never took any money from the government, no pay, no pension, no health care, no travel vouchers, no reimbursements, no nothing. And I knew the same as your governor, because I never worked for the government. The government didn't hire me, the people hired me. And I'm going to do the same. I didn't use their office firm. I didn't do anything. So, they're also uncovered a large political corruption scandal in Dallas County. And the surprising thing about it, it didn't take much effort. It just didn't. It was on your tax bill. It was on my property tax bill. Everybody in Dallas County paid this small tax. It's called Dallas County Schools, 100-year-old organization, 3,000 employees, $100 million plus annual budget. And I just kept asking, what do they do? And nobody could ever answer it. So the more I dug into it, I had hearings in Austin, the more I realized they were stealing tens of millions of dollars from Dallas County taxpayers.
Wow.
It wasn't a little bit of money. It was literally tens of millions in these kickback schemes and bribery. I got the Texas Rangers involved, and we got the FBI and the Dallas DA. And bottom line, we got 6 people put in prison, including the city mayor, pro tem, and the city council of Dallas. So he's on Dwayne Caraway. He served 7 years. But it was real hard to get a bill done to get rid of them. They don't exist anymore, and it was really difficult. Let me just tell you the swamp, how big it is in Austin. Right after inauguration in 2015, you probably remember, there's 31 state senators. There's 20 Republicans when I was there in 18. This is in the 84 session. In 11 Democrats, 20 Republicans. So a lot of us freshmen were there in 85, in the 85th session in 15. And leadership comes, they said they wanted to meet as a caucus as a whole. So we all go in there, 31 senators, small room, and in comes leadership, and they come prancing in there and say, "Welcome, senators. Welcome to the most exclusive club in the state of Texas. There's less than 150 of y'all still alive. This is the most special place you could ever be. The Texas Senate is so special. Your loyalty's always with your fellow club members, your fellow senators. You'll do nothing to embarrass them. You do nothing to hold them accountable. This is just the most special place you could ever be." And he go off on that. They talk about it for another 5 minutes. And I'm sitting there thinking in my head, I must be the only one in here wondering why they called legislators members. They don't wonder that. They're members of the club. They've got a special lunchroom, a special everything. They are the elitist. They are the know-it-alls. And believe me, instance, on constitutional carry, I was the first senator to file constitutional carry. You can't imagine the angst that caused. I mean, they couldn't stand the fact that they might have to be accountable to the Republican Party. They couldn't stand the fact that they might actually have to vote on a bill like that. And the gyrations they would go to not to take that vote. I mean, I really was cussed at in the Senate and screamed at more than I've ever been in my adult life. And this was by Republicans, not the Democrats that were Julie Young for. It was the Republicans, the rhinos. Not all of them, but most of them. Because they don't want to be accountable. They don't want to be accountable to you. They don't want to be accountable to the party platform. They don't want to be accountable to the voters. But they do love to be accountable to the money, to each other. And what they would talk about at most of our caucus meetings is the Democrats. What do the Democrats think? How are the Democrats going to respond? How do we make the Democrats happy? They would say. And they brag about that. They brag about it today. Oh, we've only got 30 partisan bills out of 700 bills or 500 bills. Or 50. We're just in a partisan chamber. And that's a very important thing. They don't want it to be partisan. They want to make the Democrats happy. Well, you're never going to see our governor talk about our party platform. One thing I always like pointing out to patriots is that the governor of Texas, I do this a lot, the governor of Texas can get generally any bill done he wants, anytime he wants. He is the governor of Texas. He's the leader of the Republican Party. We control the House, the Senate, and the governor's office for 20 years. 20 years. The governor, if he's a leader, he can get anything done he wants. All this angst that we have related to all this legislation, where it's vaccine mandates, taxpayer-funded lobbying, or whatever. And we don't get any of that done, it's because the governor doesn't want it done. If the governor wanted any of our party platform, we don't get any. 7 out of the 10 issues aren't done, and they never are 15, 17, 19, 21. We don't get this. We get 20 to 30% of our issues, legislative priorities done. It's because the governor doesn't believe in it. He doesn't want them to be law, or they would all be law. The governor is supposed to be the mediator between the House and the Senate. He's supposed to unite the Republican Party in a common goal, in a common platform, and a common mission. But he doesn't. And it's because Abbott doesn't believe in our Republican Party issues. So he's not a Republican. He's a rhino. He is. He's a Republican in name only. Well, of course, the catalyst for me to run happened in March of 20 when Abbott unilaterally shredded our Constitution. He put 3 million Texans out of work in one day. It's more jobs than we've created in the last 12 years combined. Tens of thousands of businesses were gone. Thousands of them gone permanently. And I never would have done any of that. I put an op-ed in the newspaper in the third week of April, begging him to open it back up. I led the Open Texas rallies. And then to top it all off, he closed our churches. And he closed our churches on the holiest season of the year, Easter. You couldn't bury the dead. You couldn't get married. You couldn't get baptized properly. And then he lets, with no outcry, he lets the dying die alone. Die alone. Where was he? Where was the outcry on any of this? You know, in 2,000 years of Christianity, we've never closed our churches. We haven't done that because you're talking about possible salvation of souls. He didn't care. He did it anyway. Keeps a mask mandate on us for 9 months. People thank him for taking it off. And I say it's like thanking a thief for bringing his stolen stuff back.
Yeah.
It is. I never would have done any of that, of course. And now this vaccine mandate, I mean, he's flipped 180 degrees on that. He said that, well, businesses have the right to put a vaccine mandate on you. And then And of course, I'm fighting him on that, and he flips on that. I'm never for a vaccine mandate.
You just fixed it.
If you want to take the vaccine 10 times, get after it. If you want to walk around in a spacesuit, I don't care. That's your liberty.
I'll take that as permission.
And I have never taken the vaccine, and I never will take the vaccine. So, but I'm all for you if you want to do it. So, but let me just, I don't think I'm any different. My opponent, Abbott, is a career politician. 30 years in elected office, he can't get enough of it. He's never signed a paycheck in his life, or as I know, and I think he ever has. I've helped create thousands of jobs over the years. I don't need a new career. I'm not looking for a new job. I'm doing this because the job's not getting done. I just have a different way of seeing things than he does. He's a career politician. He's a political windsock. I'm not. I'm here to solve the problems that affect Texas. And I've got the solutions, and I've got the courage to implement those solutions because I'm not worried about my political career. And I think I'm no different than you. We're all tired of the lies. We're tired of the broken and empty promises. I mean, is the border secure? Are your property taxes going away? Do you have confidence in the elections? And those are the three main things I'm focused on. And I could go all the way down the list from term limits to you name it. All our priorities. But let's just focus on those. I've got a good, solid plan to secure that border. And the fundamental part of my plan is I'm never asking permission from the federal government to secure the Texas border. I've got a great plan to phase out your property taxes over about 8 years. And we're going to keep local governments fully funded. You're going to get the vote on it. It's going to be a constitutional amendment. And so we're never going to have an income tax. It's very doable. I know it sounds like it isn't. It's not political rhetoric. I got a great plan to create a new law enforcement division to enforce our election laws. We got a lot of laws. The most important thing is we don't have anybody enforcing them. I mean, what's the point of having them if nobody cares? And they don't. And it's called Government Corruption Election Integrity Division. And they're going to be focused on just that. And I'll go over that with you in a minute. But I just like to also, there's no one coming to our rescue. We've lost more liberty in the last 20 months than we could have ever imagined. They've taken our churches, our businesses. They're forcing vaccines on people that could be potential poison. I mean, really, what's left? There's not much left to lose. And this is all done and implemented and reinforced by a Republican governor of Texas. Texas is supposed to be the tip of the spear of our liberty. I'm going to prove not just to the United States what it means to be sovereign, I'm going to prove it to the free world what it means to be sovereign. I'm never asking permission from the federal government to do anything. I'm not worried about the judges. I'm not worried about the court system. There's three legs to the stool. The judiciary, the executive, and the legislative, and the judges can't enforce the law. Only the executive branch can enforce the law. I could go on, but I do need your help. I do. I need you guys to help me cut the chains of government. Help me awaken the sheep from their slumber so they too can help us restore our liberties that have been stolen from us. Awaken the sheep to the power of the Constitution, the power of the free market, the power of Lord Jesus himself. Awaken them so that we can prove. We can light up the lighthouse of liberty in Austin so to blind those socialists, those communists in New York to San Francisco. We're going to prove to them what it means to have liberty. Personal liberty and our economic liberty. You know, like the word Texas used to have a special meaning. It doesn't anymore. Well, in the Huffines administration, Texas is going to get its swagger back.
Nice.
So, God bless you guys for coming out here and giving me something you're never going to get back, and that's your time. There's only two things you can do for liberty, really. Well, there's three. I'll talk about two. Your time and treasure. So help out the campaign. The campaign's going fantastic. As of June 30th of the reporting period, I reported over $9 million raised in the campaign. I am the lead investor. I put $5 million in it, but we're raising millions. And we're going to continue that pace. I'm opening offices across the state of Texas. It's unprecedented. We're going to open 15 field offices. I'm going here from here to open the Cut the Ribbon in Waco. I cut the ribbon yesterday in Austin, Midland, San Angelo, Houston, 3 offices in Houston. There's a path to win, and we're on it. We're going to win this. I'm not in this to send a political message. I'm in this to win. And I'm going to save Texas, and we might have a chance to save the country. So go to donhuffines.com, as you know. TJ said, sign up, endorse, make a donation, and sign up at these field offices, because we're going to have we'll be doing yard signs, 4x8s, phone bank, and everything you traditionally do and things you don't traditionally do in the campaign. But thank you very much for coming. God bless you, and I want to answer your questions. Thank you.
So, Don, if I could really quick before we get to questions, just touch on something you had mentioned. You had mentioned that Governor Abbott, if he wanted something, he would get it. And we at Open Carry Texas have insistently said, and I just want you to confirm or deny or make any comments you want, that the only reason it took us 6 years to get constitutional carry was because Abbott stood in the way. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I definitely agree with that. But it's not just on constitutional carry. Abbott's the one that empowered Strauss. Abbott's the one that empowers Fiedler. I mean, it starts with leadership at the top. Everything's downstream of the governor's office. Our virtue, our culture, our legislation. I'm going to put prayer back in the schools. That's an easy fix. I'm not worried about the litigation. I'm going to make sure that we close the border down and solve that issue once and for all, and give you details on that. But it's our culture is at stake. The power of the appointments, the board of regents for the universities, where they're poisoning everybody. What if our universities were all run by patriots? God-fearing patriots, true patriots that had tons of courage to fire the communists and the socialists running our universities instead of the elitists running them and all the know-it-alls and all the rich people who are running them now.
Yep.
And what if our education department was really run, the TEA, Texas Education Agency, was really run by true patriots, and we fired half the bureaucracy that's running it and destroying all the poisoning of our children? What if, I could go down the list from CRT and everything else. But yes, it starts with the governor, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was noticing that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said the reason that he wasn't going to bring up constitutional carry is he didn't have the votes. He had 6 people who were against it, 6 people who were neutral, and 6 people who were for it. 6, 6, and 6. I think kind of apropos. But anyway, do we know who the 6 senators were who were against it?
I've got a pretty good idea. I know where they always were. They're still there when I'm in it. But look, when people ask me what would I do, I said, I'm going to make those people vote. They came down here and they campaigned. They're in this office, and by golly, we're going to the floor, and you're going to be accountable. Abbott, that's how Patrick runs that shop. And look, I get it. That's how he wants to do it. That's not how I want to do it. I want everybody to be accountable. I want everybody in Texas to see where you stand on these issues. And whether if you think you're standing with your constituents, fine, vote whatever you want to do. But you're going to be accountable, and we're going to put it on record. And that's not how they work. It's all about covering. It's all about political cover, and that's what the governor gives them. That's why he empowers Phelan not to bring up these bills, whether it's on all this stuff. That's what leadership does. Well, that's poor leadership, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's poor leadership.
It's good followership, though. It's good followership.
I could probably go through the names. I don't know if that really benefits us all to know. But you can rest assured it's a third of the Republican Party that's in the chamber. And more of them were against it in private when I was there in 15 than they are today. When I was in 15, they were just petrified they didn't have to vote. They fought me so hard not to bring that bill up. I was going to put it in an amendment, and they knew that. And so it wasn't, they made sure that the parliamentarian made sure it wasn't germane to anything that was on the document. Because amendments are a little different in the Senate. You have to be accountable. How many bills came to the floor of the Texas Senate when I was there? I like asking this question because it does give scale and perspective of what you're dealing with in the swamp. How many bills came to the floor of the Texas Senate when I was there and did not pass? Zero. Zero. Every bill that comes to the floor of the Texas Senate is going to pass. All the votes are counted in the back. They know every vote before it goes down. It might change one or two, but it's not going to go down. So government debate, or most of the debate you see on the floor of the Texas Senate, is for show. It's for show. It's a hustle. And unfortunately, we're all part of this hustle. It's kabuki theater. It is. And the House isn't much different. It's the same in D.C. It's a swamp. Gives you an example of the swamp. So they're not going to bring a bill up if it's not going to pass. Because they don't want people to be accountable. Yes, sir.
I want to talk to you a little bit about property tax. Your plan is 8 years.
Yes, sir.
And I was wondering how you come up with 8 years. Why couldn't it be 4 years?
Yes, sir. Very good question. And the main reason is I don't want to move the burden around too fast because the way we're going to pay for it in my plan, there's a lot of paths to victory on this deal. This is a bad tax. It's a bad way to fund government, and it's a priority of our republic. It's in our party platform to get rid of it. It's never been. Texans are tired of renting it. Let me just set the table for you a little with property tax. We're all tired of renting our property from the government. You never own anything in Texas. You just rent it from the government. Your land, your ranch, your farm, your business, your home, your residence. You can pay it all off to what end? You're just going to keep renting it from the government. You don't have a lease. The rent just goes up and up every year. You don't have control of it. And in most metropolitan areas, it's a third to half the mortgage payment on your home. It's crazy. So we can do better than that in Texas. Everything's possible. Our paradigm of the past and the present does not dictate our future in the Huffines administration or how we're going to operate. The motto of my company is seeing beyond the obvious. I'm bringing that to the capital. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the growth in state revenues, and we're going to cut state spending, but the growth in our revenues grows up at about 8% a year. We're going to take 90% of that growth in state revenue, and we're going to buy down property tax with it. So it takes about 8 years for that to gradually achieve. That's about $7 billion a year. I won't go into too many details. And I'm going to move some of it over to sales tax. So sales tax will gradually increase the consumption tax. My plan doesn't change what you're paying or what you're currently being taxed on. And then we're going to have a constitutional amendment. We already have that. So you can't have an income tax. I'm going to make this a constitutional amendment is the plan. So you're going to get a chance to vote on it. I really want everybody in Texas to weigh in on this issue, to vote on the plan that comes out of the legislature. And it's all very doable. And we're going to keep all the local governments fully funded. So whatever revenues they're getting out of property tax today is replaced by the revenue stream from the entire state of Texas. Right now we pay 46% approximately of the school funding. The state does. The state's going to pay all of it. And all the funding formulas stay the same. So it doesn't really change local governments. All it does is replace where they're getting the money. And that's the goal.
I think that's so popular that it doesn't, you don't really need 8 years to do that.
Well, here's what
I hope you don't.
Well, if we move it to 4, the sales tax has to get too high. And I want to keep the sales tax in the low teens or whatever that number is, depending on what comes out. I want that to be digestible. And otherwise, we could do it in 1 year. Yeah. But that means you're going to be at a 25% sales tax. And there's a lot of
that would be a sticker shock, probably.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways to replace it. A lot of theory, a lot of ideas. Value-added tax. It's called the fair tax. There's different ideas out there, that people have come up with to get rid of property tax. And this is not a new idea, but let me just point out something that's imperative to get rid of property tax, or to secure the border, or to have confidence in our election, or anything else we're working on, CRT, sexual mutilation of our kids. You have to have one thing. You've got to have a governor that champions it.
Right.
You're not going to get to the 1-inch line unless you have a governor that champions getting rid of property tax, or all the other issues we're doing. So that's my point. Yes.
I want to talk about appointments
Yes.
and nominations.
Okay.
Had a bird's eye view about what nominations looks like.
Okay.
And that is so incredibly important. It's a very, very important power of the governor, because all of these things that you take for granted, they're run by, they have their point person and lead, the director for each of these committees and commissions. And it will just blow your hair back to see the power of what the governor can do, or maybe just ignores, and it won't fix itself. What happens is when you give that appointed power to committees, they become very powerful. So when we're looking at Snowmageddon, when we're talking about schools, I no longer work for Senator Buckingham, but I worked with 87 school districts just in SD 24. The power of these appointments, and not just universities, but our school system itself is frightening. And so when we're talking about these appointments and why it's important to get a conservative, to get someone that's going to do what they say, it's important. It's more than just a photo op, or maybe one of those nice little thrones over there. It's important. It's very, very important. And there's a lot more to it. And hopefully if we have a governor that will oversee during session, we won't have people that committees are appointed as chairs of committees. A lot of bills do not get voted on because they are killed in committees. And that is across the board. And we got to have the Save the Transgender Athlete bill came from a Democrat because he was mad at his fellow Democrats for not supporting his bill. Not the Republicans. But he was the chair of Education Committee. That's my point. So anyway, it's
It's a very good point. Thank you for making it. The power of the governor of Texas is also with appointments. Like I said, every agency in this state, just not everyone, but most of them, most that we haven't ever heard of. There's like over 230 different agencies or government entities that the governor fills all the slots up with.
Tollways. Tollways
Yeah.
are supposed to be paid off once you got the construction paid off. Here's a little secret to that. It will never be paid off. You know why? Because what they do is, once that does get funded and paid for, they use that as collateral for your next tollway. And so if you're in Houston or a major metropolitan area, you really need your tollways. And that's a given to get to work on time. You've got to pay a toll. That doesn't make sense.
I'd like to add something about the local government. They have a lot of power. The city clerks, who are appointed by the governors or whatever, however it's done, they have power that the governors cover.
They're not selected by
And it's
governors.
really bad right here in Del County right now. The evidence that I have is overwhelming. I have not gotten one